Never. There's no reason for the inspector to ever talk to the
I
buyer.
always
There's a
do.
lot of inspector.
I want them to
Comes
know.
out.
I don't want to be involved with. I let them know if there's any issues that we need to be concerned about, how we're going to solve them. I'm not worried about a house. I've
Yes.
sold and
So
done.
let-
I'm
so
like,
let me
I
ask you,
had
Jeff.
an
I need to get out of the deal.
If you're working with a buyer, you send out your company and not necessarily have the
Yeah.
buyer there and just email the buyer the result? I've never tried that.
No, I've done it. The buyer had already gone ahead and chosen their own inspector, and they put something on there that I had no idea what it was, some GFS.
Oh, GFI.
GFI.
Whatever
Yeah.
this thing is, I've got no
It's
idea.
nothing, it's
and
nothing.
then mark
It's
an X
nothing.
next to it and says $1,000 replacement.
Oh,
Oh,
Please.
come on. That's nothing. That's why I'm
the
there.
buyer
That's
got,
$25.
the buyer got all, you did not show up for the inspection and now this $1,000 that I've got to
Yeah,
pay.
problems only arise when
So-
expectations differ. You set up absolutely no expectations. In fact, you let the buyer pick their own inspection company. Why would the buyer even know of an inspection company?
Well,
Unless
this
it was
is not
their
the-
brother-in-law.
this is not the first time they're purchasing a property, so they had everything all down in line. And actually, the day when they scheduled the inspection, they called me the morning before, so I had an additional appointment. They called me, they said, hey, the inspection is at 10 o'clock. What am I supposed to
again,
do about it? It's
These
the
are the members.
inspector.
These are the members of your team.
But-
We call
Yeah.
these your team members. Okay. In your case, that was somebody thrown out of left field. I can understand being at that inspection.
Well,
Yeah.
I wasn't there. So
But if they're a team member, that means you trust them.
I can understand what you're saying, but you know, you just gotta run your. I think that
That's-
some people
that's
do little
absolutely
things.
fine.
from that day on, I decided going on all the inspection appraisal and all this is most
Yeah.
vital to my business.
GFI is absolutely
I
nothing.
don't know
Almost
what
every
to
house
say.
has a GFI converter that's not working right.
Oh, exactly.
I had no idea
It
what it
doesn't
was,
talk
but
or-
he marked
yeah.
$1,000 there for the seller, and
And-
the
and
buyer
the-
got all crazy. So I had to go on the internet at 11
The
o'clock
worst
at night to
inspection
research
report I ever
this.
had was a brand new house. We built a brand new house.
And you built it.
Yeah, inspection report, it tore that thing apart.
Yeah.
You're not buying a shirt that doesn't have a rip in it. It's a house that
Yeah.
people live in. Of course there's gonna be problems. And so if you let your buyer talk to the inspector, whose only job is to say what the issues are, it's gonna make it sound like it's falling apart. You don't want that. You wanna take a look at this inspection report and go, okay, well, it's nothing. And
Yeah.
then say, here, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And then they read it, and they don't know what any of it's saying, so they think it's nothing, right?
I think it depends on the person you're dealing with.
Yeah,
Some like that approach, some like that approach.
I think the problem I have
called
with
Jocelyn
inspectors is
immediately
that
about
most of them
11:30 at night, and I
are
asked
more
her, she says to
concerned
me,
with
"Next time, make sure you
CYA
do all
than
the
actually
inspection and
What's
then on-
CYA?
cover your own.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. Okay, I'm sorry, let's keep going. Okay, so the organizational chart is in front of you, this is on page 34. Basically, this is who's doing what and when, and so for the most part, this is you, right? You're the owner of your business, you're the team leader, you're the listing specialist, you're the buyer specialist until you start adding people to your team, okay? But what you need to understand is that these people, these are working together in a specific way. You have to know when these people need to put those hats on. Right, doesn't that make sense? Right, you have to prioritize, right? Listing specialist is much more important than marketing coordinator, so you have to prioritize. I'll give you another use for this. When you start building a team, or even if you're only a solo agent, you should have a listing presentation page that shows who your team members are, right? Even if it's just you. Go ahead and put Suzanne or myself on there. Go ahead and put Janet on there, or Kaya, right? As your administrative person or your marketing coordinator. People like seeing that you have a team, right? Put your mortgage company, your inspection company, your title company on there. Can't hurt.
Yep.
And it also helps your clients understand how this process is working. And say, so this is not just a template, it's also a page you can literally put some pictures on and names underneath and utilize in your listings.
I'll put Jim in there as runner.
Perfect.
There you go.
You'll love that, I'm sure. Okay. Okay, so the next page, in the next series of pages, is, in our opinion, the most important thing we give you in any class that we teach. Okay, these are the 47 vital listing, followed by the 47 vital buyer activities. Okay, this is a find them to close them checklist. Do you understand? This is from finding a client to closing a deal, including post-closing activities, a checklist of every vital activity that needs to be done. If you follow this to a complete T, if you go, all right, day one in real estate, what do I got to do? I got to find a seller. Right? How do I do that? Through one of those sources. Okay, now I found a seller. What's next? Ask them the pre-listing questions. assemble my pricing tools. Steps 2 through 9 is listing conversion boot camp. That's what we teach you. Steps 2 through 9 here, right? And so on and so forth. Another thing I want you to notice is, if we go back a couple pages, see these? Lead gen, lead conversion, admin prep, marketing exposure. Those are the categories. Lead gen, lead conversion, admin prep, marketing exposure, right? Those are the categories, the responsibilities. These are the activities within them, okay? So everything on this list must be done because it's vital. Now, you may have differences. You may do things a little differently. You may add things to this list. You may take things away, but please make sure it's absolutely vital. Okay? And I'll give you an example. Who knows what get on the listing channel, number 6? Who knows what that means?
I do.
You know what that means? What does it mean,
It
Suzanne?
means get tuned in. If you're going on a listing appointment, bam, you be present. You
Get yourself psyched up.
Psyched up. Exactly.
Motivated, right? That's why athletes listen to music before they take the field, right? We would say go
Ready
over
to
your
go.
scripts, go over the beliefs that we talked about, whatever you need to do to get laser focused.
Something positive on the way over, not negative. Or
Now, we believe that that's very, very important, which is why we've made it a vital activity, but if that's something you don't think you need to do, you can cross it off the list, but just make sure
I think that's the most
that taking that,
important.
okay, that's fine. And make sure taking that off, could have used any example.
Jim and I have been arguing before, and then we ring the bell, we're both like, hello! Like, so funny. Like, you son of an asshole, hello!
And if you add something to the list, like be there for your inspection, please make sure it is vital to your business, okay? So, but that's what this is. It's beautiful. It's literally a find them to close them checklist. You can have this in your purse, in your pocket,
It's nice.
and take it out every time you're about to start an activity, because if it's not on that list, it might not be vital. Probably isn't. Okay? So let's go past these pages. 35, 37. What page are we on? 41? Okay, 41. While the last couple of pages might be the most important thing we give you, this is my favorite, actually, because those were vital activities. These are dollar productive. Now, one thing you need to understand is you cannot really be doing dollar productive only activities if you are not completely vital first. So your initial goal is to make sure that every activity you do every single day within your business falls under that checklist. Okay? Once you can do that, you can start to focus on the dollar productive ones. Now, the way this chart works is this goes from the most dollar productive to the least dollar productive. Okay? And so what I want you to do every single morning when you wake up is I want you to go to this chart and I want you to ask yourself these questions. Do I have a closing today? Am I getting a check today? Who in this room has a closing today and is getting a check?
Today?
Nobody? Not a problem. That would be your highest priority for the day,
Yes.
had you said yes to that. But you all said no to that. No big deal. Let's move on down the list. Transaction. Are you holding a deal together? Are you negotiating an offer? Are you taking a listing? Or are you writing an offer today? Anybody doing any of those things today?
No.
Barbara?
I have a deal to close today.
Great. Wait, a closing or?
Well, I'm hoping it's a closing. It's been going on forever. We're now on our number 9.
She's holding the deal together.
You're holding the deal together. Okay. That's your top priority for the day. That's your top priority for the day. Now, before you guys get ahead of me, because I've heard this before, that doesn't mean you don't do any other activity until that's completed. If you, let's say you had a closing, if that closing was at 5 p.m., I'm not suggesting that you just sleep until 5 p.m., right? But that's the top priority for the day. Same thing with now that you said no to that, we move down to transactions, so that's your top priority for the day. Okay? Now, if you said no to that, no problem. Move on down the list. Presentation. Are you having a listing conversation today? Are you taking a qualified buyer in the car and showing them properties? Or are you working with a buyer and trying to figure out which one they want to take an offer on? Who's doing that today?
I'm working on trying to get another listing.
Okay. So then that's your highest priority for the day. Okay? For those that said no to that, let's move on down the list. What's the last thing on the list?
Prospecting.
Prospecting. Is there anything beyond that on the list? Anything under that? No. And so if we get to the bottom of the list and we said no to everything above it, we certainly cannot say no to prospecting, right? Because prospecting is the lowest priority dollar productive activity to be doing. Okay? Which means every single day, if you don't got this, you better be prospecting. Right?
So you get that.
Correct. Correct. That's why I say you can take this out every morning, because it shows you and puts into perspective what your goal for the day should be. And it also points out that if you've got nothing else going on, why are you not on the phone? Why are you not going out, meeting people? Why are you not holding open houses? And how many agents sit there, twiddle their thumbs, and wonder why I'm not making any money, right? Okay. So 42 is the beginning of, it says for performance standards on the top. So performance standards, remember, is how we track to get better. So this is a little bit of the beginning of the way our calculator is going to work. When we do our business plan, we're going to be asking you several things, and at the end of it, it's going to literally tell you how many phone calls you need to make, how many open houses you need to hold, how many expired listings you need to reach out to, how many for sale by owners, and whatever your plan is, and it's going to be different for each one of you, to reach your goal. Okay, so I want to give you an example. The calculator will do this for us, but I want to give you an example of how it works so you understand. So take a look over here where it says listings sold. The transaction benchmark goes on the top. So let's say you need to sell 20 houses and 10 of them are going to be listings. So what I want you to do is I want you to put the word example just right to the right of the LC, right above listings sold. And underneath the word example, I want you to put a 10 just right to the left of listings sold. So now, we're talking about in our network, and only our network, because I'm going to give you other activities for other prospecting sources. This one is just our network. Okay, so we're talking about phone calls here. Okay, so we need to get 10 sales from our network. 10 listings from our network, I mean. Then how many listings do we need to take to get those 10? And so this is what the national averages we're going to be utilizing are going to do for us. We understand, based on whether or not whether you're either a bad agent, a new agent, somebody who's moderately good at what you do, or an expert at what you do, there's going to be a different conversion rate, right? We'll agree with that, right? Somebody who's amazing at a listing conversation is going to get a higher percentage of listings than somebody who's fumbling through it, right? Okay. So I want you to know, when we do this business plan and we use the national averages, we use the fumbling, idiot, bumbling realtor, because if you're better than that, you're going to meet or exceed your goal. You can't be worse than that. And so it shows you that just doing these things consistently will get you this much production. Getting better at the skills will get you more. And so just to show you using those numbers, this is an example. This is not perfection, but this gives you an idea of how it works. So to get 10 listings sold, you'll have to take 13 listings. So go ahead and put 13 underneath. Okay? And in order to take 13 listings, you're going to have 30 meetings with people. And in order to get 30 people in a room sitting down with you, you're going to have to set 45 meetings. 15 people are just going to flake out. Right? So you're lucky if they call you to tell you they're not coming. Okay? 45 meetings, we're going to have to, 45 set meetings, you're going to have to talk to 125 people. And in order to get 125 humans to talk to you, you're going to have to make about 500 phone calls, 500 attempts. Okay, does 500 sound, you said not that bad. Does it sound a little daunting? 500 sounds a little daunting, right? Sounds like a lot of phone calls, right?
Well, if you're making 20, 25 a day, it's not that bad.
Well, don't get ahead of me, all right?
Oh, sorry.
So here's the point. Here's the point. 500 phone calls may sound like a lot. However, how many days are you going to work this year, Marco?
Probably 300.
300, okay. Well, I think you should take more days off. You should go on more vacations.
Thank you very much.
Right? I want you to take over 110 days off. I want you to only work 250 days this year, right? But every single day that you're going to work, so every one of those 250 days, you're going to be making phone calls. Okay. If you have to get to 500, how many phone calls a day? Yeah, 2. Now, does 2 sound hard?
No.
Right? So are you going to do it?
Yeah.
See, that's the hard part, right? Has anybody heard of real estate coach? Because there's plenty of them out there. Real estate is easy. That's what their ads say, right? Real estate's easy. Follow my system. You'll be a millionaire. Just make 50 phone calls a day. That's all you got to do, Margot. 50 phone calls a day. You can do that. Do you think that person made 50 phone calls a day and was successful at it? Oh, you better believe they were. Oh, yes. That person probably made 50 phone calls a day and probably was ridiculously successful doing it. Because if you make 50 phone calls a day, you're going to be very successful. Okay, but that person has also used the word earlier, obsessed. Okay? And that's not necessarily healthy. Furthermore, you might start making 50 phone calls, but then, hey, you got to pick up your kids, or, you know, you got to take a day off, or you don't feel good today, or whatever.
Or someone said yes, so they take off. Stop.
And then, so what are you going to do, make 100 phone calls the next day to make up for it? Right? And that adds up and it becomes a slippery slope and you're just not going to do it, right? And so, yeah, if you did it, you'd be good. But here, it's just 2 phone calls a day. And I promise you, you're still going to slide down that slippery slope and not do it, and 2 becomes 4, and 4 becomes 8, and so on and so forth. We don't want that. We make it as easy as 2 phone calls a day because you have to be religiously devoted to doing it. And I want you to tell me you're going to take 125 days off this year, because at least then the days you are working, you're going to be committed to doing it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because when we ask you these questions, it's not for me, right? I'm not your boss. I'm your team member. I'm helping you accomplish your goal, which is building your business, right? Mm-hmm. So you're only fooling yourself. If you tell me, I say, Kendra, how many days are you going to work this year? And you give me that normal job interview answer of I'm committed 24/7, 365, that's bullshit, right? Take as many days off as you need, but on the days you're working, you work. You put it in your schedule, you're going to make those 2 phone calls. And then you will watch how those 2 phone calls will turn into 500 talks, 100 sets, or whatever we went over and got up to 10 listings sold, right? That's how that's going to work. Keep in mind that was just for your network. So we're also going to have that for open houses.
Would that be 2 new people per day, or does that
Nope.
include?
Nope, in your network,
only.
that's people you know. So you can recycle those people every other day, or as much as they'd be willing to pick up the phone and hear you. Open houses, if it's a new open house, can hold the same house open every single day, it doesn't matter. Right? Expireds, we know where to find them. For sale by owners, we're going to tell you to visit them. But that's the point. And so when we do the business plan, I'm going to give you a little sheet at the end of it that says, okay, to reach your goal, you're going to have to call 3 people a day in your network, hold 1 open house a week, reach out to 7 expired listings a day. Whatever it is you're telling me, that's all based on what you want to do and how you want to run your business. But that's what's going to be spit out at the end. Does that make sense? Okay. And then you see the conversion rates on the bottom here, which is the things we're tracking, right? We want to know dials per talk, talks per set, because although we're going to use averages, it's beneficial to know when Marco makes that many phone calls, how many people talk to him, set a meeting with him, give him the listing, right? For another reason, okay? Because if you sit down with a buyer and you tell that buyer that every time I go out with a buyer, we find their dream home within the first 2 times we go out. That's something you'd think a buyer might want to know, right? Better than working with somebody who takes six weeks, right?
Yeah.
Got to go out and see 50 houses before we find one you like. Because I have a process that's going to make sure you're going to get the home you want and want the home you get. And there it is in my statistics. All it takes is 10 houses and we find your dream home. Right? Same thing with when you go on a listing, right? If you take listings you can't sell, your statistics look pretty bad, right? I call them your batting averages, right? Nobody wants to be up 10 times and fail 10 times. That's not very good. But if you've only taken 1 listing in your entire life and you sold it, how many percentage of your listings sell? 100% of them. You don't have to go into details, but that's a good thing to tell a seller, isn't it? Why list with me? Because every single time I've ever taken a listing, we sold it. And we sold it.
Sanders.
And we sold it for 99% list price to ratio, right? So we get your price too. It's only 1 house. They don't have to know that,
No,
right?
they don't.
But when you take a bunch of listings you can't sell, you take them for overpriced, that's hurting your statistics, right? It is. So that's the stuff. So there are 2 reasons. 1, you can sell them to others, and 2, we see where you need to get better. Because when we sit down, one-on-one, and if we consult with you after we've given you the business plan, Suzanne and I, we're going to say, well, show me what you've tracked. Show me what your rates are. Because that's going to help us figure out which class you need to be sitting down in, right? Margot, you're holding awesome, successful, effective, and efficient open houses. You're getting people to sign up. That's the hard part if you ever hold an open house, right? But you're not getting buyers to want to work with you. What's the problem here? Well, maybe buyer conversion boot camp is a place where you need to be, right? As opposed to the problem is you can't get anybody to fill out your piece of paper with anything but eatshit@AOL.com, right? Well, then you need to be holding a better open house, and you need to get better at the conversation within the open house. So open house boot camp as opposed to buyer conversion is where you need to be. So you see how that works? It's all based on where you need your help. Okay? And then the last page, I believe it's the last page, right? Yeah. 24 hours, it comes down to time management is an oxymoron, right? You cannot manage time. You can only manage the activities that you do within the 24 hours that you have. So we call it activities management, which is why that is the next class really in the Momentum series. Because in order for you to be consistently vital, because that is the goal, right? We want you to eventually be consistently dollar productive. But you can't get there before you're consistently vital, and nobody in this room is consistently vital yet. Right? And so the only way we can do that is by scheduling properly, prioritizing properly, and only doing the vital activities when they need to be done. And that's what activities management is going to help you accomplish, okay? So we're going to get into that, and that class will be next month. I'm putting out the calendar. I'm going to send it out in the next couple of days, so you'll all get a copy. I believe it's at the end of the month, next month. Okay, so that's the class. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
I'm so sorry I was here and here all together.
Okay, so then the last thing I'm going to tell you, and if you notice that there is family